Hello Sitecore Techies, welcome back to my Sitecore Diaries, your ultimate guide to digital experience excellence. If you are new here, this is your go-to channel for everything in Sitecore and .NET. I am Jitendra Ghanekar, the Sitecore Technology MVP 2024, 3-time Sitecore certified and XM Cloud certified. In today's video, we are continuing our deep dive into the top 10 security risks in websites built on CMS. Last time we covered some key risks, and today we will tackle the remaining threats that are essential to securing your digital experience. Whether you are a developer, an architect, or a business owner, understanding these last few vulnerabilities will give you a comprehensive view of the potential threats and help you to keep your website safe and from the breaches. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell icon so you stay updated on the latest Sitecore tips and strategies. So let's get started on the final stretch of our top 10 security threats. So our first risk is SQL injection. So let's see. The next one is cross-site scripting. Now the third one is cross-site request forgery. Fourth one, remote code execution, RCE. Now the fifth one is outdated softwares and plugins. The sixth one is insecure authentication and weak password. What and how? Insecure authentication and weak passwords are significant security threats that can lead to unauthorized access, data breaches, and other cyber incidents. These weaknesses are common in both user accounts and system logins, making system vulnerable to various attacks including credential stuffing, brute force attacks, and phishing. So it's very important to have a strong password, strong authentication mechanism. We'll take an example. Now the two example I will give, and those are your leading social media handles which you currently also using it in your day-to-day life. Okay, so I'm not giving the name of those sites, so you can search and Google it and then let me know in comment which sites I'm talking about. I'm giving you two examples. First, there is a leading social media website which has a data breach. Their password DB, their hashing technology, hashing algorithm was vulnerable. So that was hashed password was hacked and were posted on the Russian hacker forum. Okay, so this was one of the cases which has happened on 2012 because of a vulnerable hashing algorithm. So we are talking about insecure authentication technique. So this was one of them. Then 2019, recently, a leading social media website, there is another data breach. The data, there are multiple websites which is storing their data on the cloud service like Amazon, and it is unprotected, lacked proper authentication, because of which anyone could access those simply by knowing the URL and the IP address. By knowing the URL and IP address, they're able to access that data. So that was also a breach which was happened in 2019 by the social media and media website. I'm not giving the name of those media websites. 2000 it is happened. One is happened on 2012 and another is 2019. You can tell me in the comment what are those companies or those social media and media website where these breaches has happened. One is at year 2012 and another is recently 2019. Now, why it is critical? It's an easy entry point for attackers. So means the authentication mechanism and password, it's an easy entry point for attackers. So weak or a common password are easy for attackers to guess or crack. They can write a tool to create your your user password. Okay, if it is simple, you are using some combination which is generic. Okay, giving them a direct access to accounts and sensitive information. What happens when you get the password? You know what will happen in future. High risk of credential theft. So attackers can use phishing, social engineering, or brute force technique to steal password, especially if the authentication mechanism is not robust. Potential for widespread access. When attackers gain access, they often move laterally within the network to access a more sensitive system and data. So once you got the password for the one of the system account, it can move to the multiple systems within the network. Impact on organization and individual. A breach due to weak authentication can lead to reputation damage, financial losses, and loss of trust from the customers or users. Now, how to mitigate this? Multi-factor authentication, MFA. I think now all the companies are going for this multi-factor authentication. It requires an additional form of verification beyond just a password. So you just cannot just log in within password. It can be a one-time code sent to your mobile device or maybe a biometric verification. The MFA significantly reduces the risk of unauthorized access even if a password is compromised. So even your password is compromised due to the multi-factor authentication, your risk is minimized. Enforce strong password policies. Require a password to be long, at least 12 characters, with a mix of uppercase, lowercase, number, and special character. Avoid allowing common password like 12345 6 or password. Use tool to block this. So if you are using this password, your password policy says that it should block these passwords or you should not allow this password. So that kind of a strong password policy you should implement. Use of a password manager. So encourage user to use a password manager to generate and store a complex password securely. This is reduced likelihood of a password reuse and simplify the secure password management. This is now the all the companies that are implementing it. So you will have the password manager. You will generate automatically a random password which can be a complex one and which is valid for some amount of a time only. So that way you can manage it. Implement account lockout mechanism. Set up a policies to lock accounts temporarily after the set of a number of failed login attempts, preventing brute force and automated attacks. So you should have a mechanism if there is a number of times user have failed, like 2, 3, 4. So you should block that user or inactive that user. It's because there might be a tool written by the hacker to generate a password and try it. So that can be n number of combination it can generate. So you should stop that by deactivating that user or locking that user. Educate user on password security. Regularly educate users on the importance of a strong password, avoiding reuse and recognizing phishing attempts. While it can be minor inconvenience, regular password changes are recommended, especially if there is a reason to believe password may have been compromised. Bit inconvenience, like regularly you have to update the password, you have to remember the password. There are multiple systems you have to log in daily, so you have to remember all those passwords. So it is bit inconvenience, but I think you have to do it. So you have to educate the users to use of a strong password. Enable password hashing encryption. So I have already told you there is one incident which has happened uh, due to the weak password encryption mechanism. Okay, so use a strong password mechanism. Stored password using strong hashing algorithm like bcrypt, scrypt, or aragon 2. Plain text password storage is critically security fault. You cannot store a plain text password in your database. Encryption ensures that even if passwords are exposed in a data breach, they remain unreadable without an encryption key. So if there is no encryption key, you will not able to read that even though it is compromised. Okay. So these are the mitigation points for the weak password and authentication mechanism. File upload vulnerabilities. File upload vulnerabilities occurs when a CMS, that is content management system, allows users to upload files without properly validating, sanitizing, or restricting them. Attackers can exploit these vulnerabilities by uploading malicious files, often executable scripts that can run unauthorized commands compromising the CMS server or database. So you must be having a file upload functionality. If you don't sanitize what file is getting uploaded, then user can upload any kind of a file. It can be any exe, also can be a file, and can get executed, and it can compromise your system. So example is like you have a upload file, and for file picture is there. So you're supposed to upload the image here, but there is no sanitization in there. So I upload the devil.js JSON file, sorry, JS file. So it doesn't validate file extension or MIM type, so it can create uh, it can it can execute an arbitrary code over the network. So you have uploaded JS file, devil.js file. In that there might be any code which can compromise the CMS or a server or a database. Let's see why it is critical. First is remote code execution. You already seen remote code execution vulnerabilities. So by using this file upload, the user can do that. So attackers can upload a script that, when executed, can grant them control over the server. A data breach and exfiltration. Malicious files can provide attackers with access to sensitive data or allow them to steal the information. So data breach can happen because that script can be anything, right? Malware and defacement. Malicious files can be used to display unauthorized content or inject more malware, affecting the CMS reputation and user trust. Malware and defacement. Malicious file can be used to display unauthorized content or inject malware, affecting the CMS reputation and user trust. Now, how to mitigate this? Strict file type validation. So, only allow specific non-executable files, that is JPG, PNG, PDP, etc., and reject any files with extension that can be executable by the server, like exe and PHP. So make strictly file type validations. Okay, only allow which are files which are not executable. MIME type validation. Verify that files MIME type matches the expected format to prevent attackers from uploading files with altered extensions. So the user might alter the extension so to bypass that strict file type validation. So use MIME type validations. Store files outside the web. So whatever you are uploading, those files you try to store that outside the webhook folder. So store upload files in directory outside the webhook, making it inaccessible through URLs. Serve the files through scripts that don't execute them directly. Limit file permissions. So set restrictive permissions on upload files to prevent them from being executable by the server. This ensures files are only readable but not executable. So if you have a limited file permission, then files can only read but not executable. So that will also limit on the attackers. Use security plugin and scanning tools. So many CMS platforms offer security plugins that scan upload files or malicious content regularly. Update these tools and your CMS to address a new vulnerability. So you can have the virus detection software which comes right when you upload a file. It also check the virus. So those kind of tools you can integrate with your CMS as well as your front-end website. Rename files upon upload. So to make sure to rename files upon upload. So rename uploaded file to prevent attackers from controlling the file name. Strip out any special characters or path references from the file names to prevent a directory traverse attacks which could expose the sensitive files. So sensitive files can get exposed if you have added some traversal path, like a file path kind of file name. So you should rename those files. Okay, you can standardize those file name, and so that the attackers cannot identify that. XML external entity attacks, XXE attacks. What and how? XXE attacks exploit a vulnerability in the application that process XML input. Many content management systems which often use XML to handle the data. It can be vulnerable to XXE attacks if they parse XML in a insecure way. Attackers can use SXE vulnerabilities to access sensitive files, perform a denial of service DOS attacks, or even execute a malicious code on the server. So example is like you have a again the upload file functionality profile picture. Instead of profile picture, it doesn't validate the file extension and it upload this XML file here, table.xml file, okay, which is actually trying to access your etc password file. Okay, so this execute arbitrary code over the network and get the password out from this file you see here, this file. Okay, so this is one of the example of XXE. Why it is critical? Sensitive data exposure, and attackers can exploit XXE vulnerabilities to gain unauthorized access to sensitive files on the CMS server, such as password file, configuration file, and other private information files. So sensitive data will get exposure. Server compromise and control. In several cases, attackers can exploit XXE to execute commands on the server, taking over the CMS and accessing the other connected systems. Potential for denial of services DOS. I think this is very important. By triggering a large external entity references, attackers can overload the server, causing a denial of a service, making the CMS unavailable to the legitimate users. So it can upload the files, which will have a code which is like there is some loop is running, so which can overload the system, which makes your server down. Okay, so that will make your website or a CMS down. Expand attack surface. So many CMS platforms expect the data from multiple sources such as plugins, APIs, and third-party integration, increasing the risks of SXE attacks if not handled properly. So you need to handle the external integration properly to avoid the SXE attacks. Now, how to mitigate? Input validation. So validate XML input rigorously. Ensure that CMS only accepts the valid and set XML data without doc type declaration. Validating inputs can prevent the insertion of a malicious code in XML files. So sanitize your XML files. Disable external entity processing. So configure the XML parser to disallow external entity declaration. Many XML libraries have option to disable these features by default. So if you are using XML parser, make sure that you are disallowing the external entity declaration. Web application firewall (WAP). Use a WAP with specific rules to detect and block SXE payloads. A WAP can provide an additional layer of defense by filtering out suspicious or malicious requests before they reach to the CMS. So use WAP, that is Web Application Firewall, which can detect the SXE attack and that blocks the payload. Limit file access permission. Use a restrictive permission model on a server so that CMS process has limited access to sensitive files. This way, even an XXE attack is attempted, it cannot access sensitive files. So limit your file access permission so that it will minimize the risk of accessing the sensitive files or read or delete the files. Sanitization of a user uploaded XML. Strip out or sanitize any XML doc type declaration or entity references from user upload XML file. Regularly scan XML files to potentially harmful elements before they are processed. And this is key, that regular security patching. Keep CMS software plugins and XML parser updated. Regular security patches often contain fixes for known vulnerabilities, including SXA issues, to help mitigate the risks associated with insecure libraries. So don't ignore the security patches. Do update those security patches regularly as soon as you receive that. So these are the ways you can mitigate SXE attack. Number 9 on our list is clickjacking. What and how? Clickjacking is a security vulnerability where an attacker overlays an invisible or disguised UI element on top of the legitimate web page. This trick users into clicking on hidden buttons or links, unknowingly performing action like changing account setting or authorization transition. So what you see is not actually happening. Like there is something which is you are showing like a get a discount, but within that discount behind the screen something else is happening. That is clickjacking. So example is like you have a website which can have a look like fake website. Okay, so this will it will tell you it will look like you are having the same website, but it's actually a fake website. So and your whatever you are performing, user is utilizing your data. You are collecting a data from you. There can be a website where you will see a get discount button, but behind that there is a transfer money function. So when you click on a get discount, it actually transferring your money to their account. Similarly, you can have something like terms and condition. You're clicking on I agree, and there is something else is happening behind that button. So this kind of a thing where it looks it's a clickjacking. Okay, you see something and the actual thing is something else. Okay, so that is a clickjacking, which is also threat or a security threat or a vulnerability in a website. So why it is critical? Unauthorized action. User may unknowingly perform harmful actions such as deleting a content or changing account permission. You are not aware what is happening. You see something else and something else is happening. Account compromise. CMS admin accounts can be targeted, allowing attackers to gain full control over the website. Then data exposure and manipulation. Sensitive data can be exposed or altered by malicious interaction on the site. So data exposure and manipulation is also there. Damage to our user trust. When users are tricked into the unintended action, it weakens the trust in the platform security. So obviously, if you are seeing something and if something else is happening, you will lose the trust. Okay, so these are why it is critical. It is unauthorized action is happening, account compromise, data is getting exposure and manipulate, damage to the user trust. So now how to mitigate this? Again, the CSP, that is content security policy, will help you here. You can have a frame and sector directory. So implement a CSP with a frame and sector directory to specify which sites are allowed to embed the CMS in an iframe. So generally it happens because of an iframe. You're adding an iframe on the screen, which is you think is the same part of your site, but it's something else. So to avoid that, use a frame and sector directory. Use express option header. So add the express option header in the HTTP response to or control if how a web page can be displayed in the frame. Set this header deny or same origin to control if your site can be framed. So express option you can set to deny or same origin to control if your site can be framed. So if you set the same origin, so only the express with the same origin can work. Use frame busting script. So when a web page is loaded, the frame busting script check if the web page is being displayed within an iframe. If it detects that it is, the script forces the page to bust out of the frame and load in the top level windows instead. So there are script which is called as the busting script, which identifies whether you have a iframe, and then if finds the iframe, then the script forces the page to burst out of the frame and load in the top level windows instead. Next one is use same site cookies. We have seen what is same site cookies. So this attribute protects cookies from being sent with the cross site request. User confirmation on critical action. This is very important, and I think most of the sites and website this is now compulsory. I mean they are using it. So requires user confirmation like captcha or confirmation dialog for high risk action such as deleting content or changing permission to prevent unauthorized action from clickjacking. Regular security audit. So perform regularly security assessment to identify and address vulnerabilities that may allow clickjacking attacks. So these are the ways you can mitigate the clickjacking attacks. Now last in the list, improper access control. Improper access control in CMS occurs when the system fails to properly enforce access restrictions, allowing unauthorized users to access, modify, or delete data they shouldn't have access to. This vulnerability can lead to data breaches, unauthorized changes, and other security issues. So in CMS, you must be having different roles. Okay, so every role will have a different activity to perform, different task to perform. So if that is not managed correctly or it has some defect, then it can create a problem. So assume that you have a web author who has access to a public information, who can edit the public information, whereas you have the finance author who access through the finance information. Now if the information is, I mean, so access is not correct, okay, then this web author can get access to a finance information that is supposed to, he should not have that access, right? This unauthorized access could lead to the exposure of a sensitive information. So there might be a sensitive information related to the finance, which are supposed to publish to maybe 2 3 days after, or 2 3 days after, 2 3 months, or end of the quarter. That information will get leaked to the web author. So if that access is not properly managed, so that can lead to exposure of a sensitive information. Now, why it is critical? It directly affects the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of a data. Unauthorized access to the sensitive information. It can lead to modify or delete a critical data. Like if users is not supposed to have a delete access, but somehow it gets it, then it can delete the critical data also. Perform unauthorized action if they were legitimate users. So these are the critical points because of which it is important to address this and how to mitigate this. Role-based access control. So generally we always have a role-based access control. So you should build your website. User control should be role-based. So establish a clear user role. So you should define your clear role, that what is role and what it should does as admin, editor, viewer, etc. And limit the permission strictly to necessary actions per role. For instance, author can create and edit their own post but not access the site settings. So this needs to be managed. So role-based access control. Access control testing. So generally we do the testing of a website, but there is no we just avoid the testing of the access control. So you should be doing the access control testing as a part of your testing mechanism. Regular testing. Regularly conduct access control testing to check if users have a restricted access to only the functionalities and resources they are entitled to. Manual and automated tools can help identify the gaps. So you can have a manual and automated testing done for this access control testing. Implement principle of a least privilege. This is also important, that assign the minimum permission required for each user to perform their task. Avoid assigning the highest privileges that necessary even temporarily. Implement logging and monitoring. It is important to know who has done what. So important to log and the monitoring. Track access logs, suspicious activities. This provides a visibility into any unauthorized attempts to access restricted areas. So you should be monitoring the logs, and this will identify if there is any suspicious activity happening. Regular access audit. Perform periodic audit to check the unusual access patterns or permission changes. This helps ensures user don't retain unnecessary privilege over a time. So make sure that you are doing a regular access audit. Secure session management. Use strong session management practices like expiring session after a set duration, requiring re-authentication for sensitive action. All those you should be doing it. So you should have a strong session management practice. So these are the mitigation which you should be applied for access control. So we have seen top 10 security threats in website built on CMS. So let us summarize all common mitigation measures that will address most of the threats. So let's summarize. First of all, what are the 10 threats we have seen? First is the SQL injection. Second is the cross-site scripting. Third, cross-site request forgery. Remote control execution. Fourth, fifth, outdated software and plugins. Sixth was insecure authentication and weak passwords. Seventh was file upload vulnerabilities. 8th is XXE Attacks, 9th is Clickjacking, and 10th is Improper access control. So these are the top 10 security threats you can have in CMS websites, website built on CMS. So let's summarize why to address these vulnerabilities or these threats. First is the data protection. It prevents the unauthorized access to the sensitive users and administrative data. Then financial security protects against the financial losses from any fraud, transaction, or account misuse. System integrity safeguard the CMS and server from the unauthorized commands or modification. User trust, this is also very important thing. Maintains user confidence in the platform reliability and security. Reputation management avoids the damage to the website or business reputation due to data breaches or a defacement. Compliances helps meet data protection and privacy regulation by securing user data. Business continuity prevents secure a service disruption that could lead to a loss of business or users. So these are the things because of which you should address all the vulnerabilities which will be having in the system, and to mitigate the common mitigation which you should be doing it for any point of a time. So first is the input validation and sanitization. So we have already seen there are many places the input validation and sanitization was key. So ensures all user inputs are validated and sanitized, preventing the injection like SQL injection, malicious file upload. So all those will take care by this input validation sanitization. User anti-CRF tokens and same-site cookies. So protects against the CSRF attack by using unique tokens in forms and setting cookies with the same site attributes to limit the cross-site request. Implement security headers. Set HTTP headers like express option, contain security policy to prevent clickjacking. Controls can be loaded in the iframe and protects against unauthorized script execution. File upload restrictions. So we have seen there are two places where file restriction, two threads where file upload that is directly in question. So restrict file types, validate IMAM types, rename files on upload, and store files outside the webhook to prevent file upload vulnerabilities and unauthorized file access. Then authentication and authorization best practices. So require re-authentication for sensitive actions, ensures user only have access to necessary permission. This minimizes risk from unauthorized action. And the last is regular security audits and software updates. So keep the CMS and all plugins up to date and conduct regular security audits to identify this fix vulnerabilities before they can be exploited. So this is the summary of all the complete video. So why to address it? Because it hits your data protection, financial security, system integrity, user trust, reputation management, compliance, and business continuity. What are the common mitigation? First is input validation and sanitization. Use anti-CSRF tokens and same-site cookies. Implement security headers. File upload restriction. Authentication and authorization best practices. Implement the authentication and authorization best practices. Regular security audits and software updates. And that's a wrap on our deep dive into the top 10 security risks in website built on CMS. I hope these two videos given you valuable insights and practical tips to secure your Sitecore website and protect your digital experience. If you found this information helpful, please give this video a thumbs up and share it with anyone else who might benefit from this. And of course, I would love to hear from you. Drop a comment below if you have any question or thought on this security risk, or any question you want to ask in .NET and this Sitecore. If you are new here, don't forget to subscribe to my Sitecore Diaries and hit the bell icon to stay up to date with all our latest Sitecore and .NET content. Thanks for watching. Sitecore Techies, keep your site secure, and I will see you in the next video.